Good evening. Since today is a special day, our news program will be somewhat different than usual. Instead of beginning with the top news stories of the day, we'll begin with some special New Year's greetings. According to Eastern calendars, this year is the year of the dog. But I should remind you that according to the Eastern tradition, the year begins on the 10th of February. These dogs, although they are dogs, are unusual. They're very cute looking, and it's hard to imagine that they are real dogs. They don't bite and they don't bark. The Japanese calendar works on a 12-year cycle, and this year is the year of the dog that marks sunshine and bravery. These little dogs, these artificial dogs, are very popular in Japan, and it is expected that they will be in high demand among consumers this year. But the year is not going to be simply a happy and easy one. We expect that there will be continued environmental disasters around the world, which will have significant impact upon the weather conditions throughout the world. As for economics, not only Russia will be facing continued economic decline, but the world as a whole. And now, what does the year of the dog mean for those people who are born under this sign? This is a sign that personifies strength and light. The year will be a good year in terms of emotions and good health. That is, as long as you don't do anything stupid. There are some places in the world where it's possible to celebrate the New Year's more than once, and a place where you can part with last year and greet the New Year all at the same time. And I'm speaking particularly about the Bering Sea, on the island that we call the Ratmanova Island, that is located right on the international date line. Also, in the Arctic, there are some regions where you can greet the New Year twice. I was in the Arctic once, didn't celebrate New Year's twice, but did celebrate International Women's Day a couple of times. Alexander Zelebruch and Vasily Tserebrov have celebrated the New Year 17 times already because they keep circling the Earth. Actually, at midnight Moscow time, these two astronauts will be located on the Mir station. Of course, even though they're in space and doing research, they will celebrate the New Year just like everyone else and will have festivities in space, but it still isn't clear whether or not they'll have any drinks stronger than juice on the table. They will be able to watch television programs broadcast directly from Earth. They have 2 weeks left in space, and we expect that by mid-January they will be back home. We wish you both good luck and a safe journey home. This past year has been an historically difficult one for Russia, but we have great hope for the new year ahead. Today, the leader of the Party of the Russian Unity and Consent, the deputy of the State Duma, Sergei Shakrai, spoke negatively about the consultations that recently took place among the 4 largest parties in the State Duma: the Liberal Democratic Party, the Agrarian Party, the Communist Party, and the Russian Party. According to Interfax, Sergei Shakrai said that the changes in government will only weaken the government and will cause further confrontation between the executive and legislative branches of the government. According to Itar-TASS, some well-versed sources say that Boris Yeltsin will be allowed to make amendments to the draft program on reforms in the government, which was established by the cabinet, headed by Vice Premier Yegor Gaidar. This coming year is the year of the dog, and I hope that everyone will have plenty of work and happiness. What would you like for New Year's? I'd like a horse. A horse? Of course, a rocking horse. I want to fly to Mars. What would you like to wish everyone for New Year's? Well, so that school children study well in school. I would like more work and less foolishness in our country. And now, for prognosis, the Ministry of Economy said that the gross domestic product will be reduced only by 3% in 1994 as compared to 12% in 1993. According to experts in the ministry, the reduction in production from 1994 will only be 6% as compared to 16% in 1993. These statistics are from the State Committee on Statistics. As for transportation, the reductions will be 6% in 1994 as compared to 29% in 1993. We expect to see some stabilization in the production among petroleum refinery plants as well as the gas and electric power generation industry. The actual income for citizens of the country will be 3 to 5% less than it was in 1993. As we all know, many children like to express themselves by making drawings. Our information television station is beginning a new program. This program will begin airing on the 2nd of January. It's called Children's Viewpoint. It's a special animation-type program by which children will be able to demonstrate to adults their impressions and their opinions about serious problems that face the world. We'll be able to see the world through children's eyes. And now we have a bit of more news from the Ministry of Economics. They say that agrarian output will be reduced by 5 to 6% in 1994 as compared to 1993. The Volgograd market is a very impressive one. One has the feeling here that everything one could possibly need in terms of food is available here. However, even a bucket of apples costs 15,000 rubles, which is hardly affordable to all. In fact, it's least affordable to the very farmers that produced it. 2 million tons of grain that were sold to the government have not yet been paid for. The farmers are still owed 13 billion rubles, and of 700,000 tons of grain that was distributed, much of it has not been sold. Many of the vegetables and meat that have been cultivated here have turned out to be not profitable, and the farmers are having to reduce the number of livestock they keep and the amount of crops that they produce. This past year had many disappointments, but perhaps the most important thing is that we still have hope for the future. We have great hopes for our new parliament and new government. They won't abandon us after all. Just in the last few days of this past year, the Far East sailors have completed a great journey through the Arctic. And they've arrived now finally at the Chukotsky Peninsula. They were able to bring consumer goods to some of the most remote northern regions of our country. But some of the stockholders of the Far East Shipping Company are quite concerned about the fact that the people living in the northern territories still have not paid for all of the goods that have been brought to those regions. And they have been behind in payments since June. The total amount of money owed is about 10.5 billion rubles. And it doesn't look like anyone plans to make these payments in the near future. It is quite likely that as a result of this, the Far East Shipping Company will have to demand prepayment for any goods brought to the northernmost regions. Tickets for railroad tickets will be much more expensive as of the 1st of January. Prices will increase 2.5-fold. In Uzbekistan, the ruble will no longer be the official form of currency, and anyone who continues to use rubles will be considered violators of the law. However, the state trading organization said that there will be a small network of shops that are selling deficit goods that can still sell them for 1993 issue rubles. In Azerbaijan, the ruble has also been taken out of circulation, and as of the 1st of January, the local currency, the manat, will be the only official currency. In Kazakhstan, the peasants here are just gathering the last bits of the crops left in the fields. These are the people that till their own land, grow their own crops. Mr. Kashlambad, for example, is the head of a large 6-person family. He also has 15 grandchildren. His family is now the proud owners of a piece of land, a half a hectare to be exact, and they're able to produce 2 to 3 times more food than they were able to glean from the former collective farm at which he worked. A kishlak, or village as it is called in Central Asia, many of them have recently received gas and electricity. Also, a mosque in this particular kishlak has been built, and the residents have been able to be more actively involved in their religion. Many people will pray this year to Allah that the year will be full of good wishes and that people will be more intelligent, patient, and hardworking. In Janbunsky, another city in Kazakhstan, or another town in Kazakhstan, is a region of extensive sheep herding. The Chiban, or the sheep herder, plays a very important role here. He has to live in very difficult conditions without any comfortable living quarters and almost no pay at all. Even the meat that he raises here, the lamb, goes for almost nothing at the market. Nonetheless, despite some of the difficult conditions here and the fact that these areas are very remote, none of the villages here are going without attention and celebration of the new year. The Lenin Kolkhoz has decided to play an active role in providing food for the people in the region so that they can usher in the new year and celebrate friendship, loyalty, and love. As of the 31st of December, in Ukraine, many people are tending to use more electricity than normally, and the electric power industry is experiencing peak use. This particular station, the hydroelectric plant on the Dnieper, is the only plant that has emergency power reserves in Ukraine. Recently, after Ukraine and Russia divided their electric power generation systems, this particular plant dropped its production to 49.3 hertz. If it goes any lower than this, then the station will shut down automatically. The regular frequency is changed manually. However, there's quite a lot of concern that if there's a further drop in production of electric power, then this could create great difficulties for Ukraine as a whole. It is quite interesting to note that in the 30s, this particular power plant was the one power plant that finally brought light to Ukraine, and now the power plant is trying to prevent Ukraine from being shrouded in darkness. In Dushanbe and in other areas of Tajikistan, life is beginning to return to normal. There is no longer a curfew in large cities, and many people are trying to get back on their feet. The sad thing is though that New Year's is just around the corner and there's no money and no goods to buy presents for the small children. No money, no clothing, and no candy. But one must give credit to the Tajikistan labor unions because they have brought in Christmas trees, gifts, and artists in order to cheer up the Tajik children here. They're especially active in some of the orphanages for the blind and the deaf. Today we found out that a decree was signed by Boris Yeltsin to award special government recognition to border troops of the Russian Federation. 30 rank-and-file members and officers will be awarded state awards for their personal bravery and 57 for their courage. In Tbilisi and other cities of Georgia, curfew has also been lifted. The Tbilisi mayor said that because of the fact that New Year is this evening, then for the next 3 days, water, natural gas, and electricity will be provided to all the citizens and residents of the town. Today, in the Nagorno-Karabakh, war continued to bring damage to the region. Azerbaijani troops attacked Karabakh positions in the northern Maradarsky region. According to Interfax, 2 tanks were destroyed and 40 infantrymen killed. According to the chairman of the Nagorno-Karabakh military, the losses on both sides have been significant. But in detail, they said that Azerbaijan has lost 6 tanks and 4 military personnel carriers, and 5 tanks have been taken as trophies by the opposing side. In addition to this, more than 700 officers have been killed on the Azerbaijani side. In Azerbaijan today, they're celebrating not only New Year's, but also Solidarity Day. In Serbia, the New Year's is being ushered in cold and darkness. One of the largest coal basins in the region is being shut down due to strikes. As a result, fuel is not being delivered to electric power plants, hence the darkness and the cold. The Drila River forms the natural border between Serbia and Bosnia in former Yugoslavia. It is also the dividing line now between war and blockade. UN convoys continue to bring humanitarian aid to Muslim enclaves. On the 23rd of December, the Bosnian Serbs, Croats, and Muslims decided upon a truce until the 15th of January. This is the first time, despite lack of success at negotiations, where they've decided to allow for this truce so that humanitarian aid can be brought to the sick and the hungry in Muslim enclaves in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Although in central Bosnia there is some claim of calm, this is all relative, because there have been decisive battles of late between the Muslims and the Bosnian Croats. Nonetheless, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees continues to insist that humanitarian aid be brought to Muslim enclaves in the region, despite the fact that the food is being driven through Croatian and Serb regions, whose situation is not all that much better than that of the Muslim enclaves. The blue-capped UN troops will be celebrating New Year's between 2 fronts, and Russian envoys will be based some in the Muslim area of eastern Bosnia. These are troops from eastern Ukraine, and others will be serving in eastern Slovenia. These will be Russian troops. The year of 1993 leaves us with contradictory impressions of the European community. The 12 countries finally signed the Maastricht Treaty and brought an end to uncertainty in the fate of the political and economic future of the economic community in Europe. Although they have finally been able to open their borders, they are not entirely freely open, and goods and services are not flowing as freely as one might hope. However, finally, at the GATT negotiations, the 12 countries decided to avoid a split and decided to act together and create a united bloc. The European community will no longer be called the European Community, but the European Union, and it is hoped that in the next year they will be able to overcome some of the economic crises that threaten them. But it has been stated that the budget deficits of all these countries will increase, and this will make it difficult to realize their desires to create a common European currency. As for foreign policy, we saw in the former Yugoslavia, for example, that the countries did not necessarily work together well in their efforts to try to resolve the conflict that ensues in that region. Nonetheless, these countries feel that they've overcome much of the uncertainty that existed previously in their relations, and they're hopeful and optimistic for 1994. The path along which Western Europe is traveling will not be an easy one. However, the beginning has been laid. The Swiss police have been investigating the murder of Kazim Aranjay, the brother of a leader of the Iranian opposition, in 1990. During the investigation, it was concluded that, or revealed that 2 Iranians were arrested in France. During the investigation, Switzerland requested that France return these send these two Iranians to Switzerland, but the French government denied their request and returned these individuals to Iran. In Taiwan today, the parliament was wrought with fistfights and arguments. They couldn't reach a consensus on the activities of two security services in Taiwan. But now let's turn to some of the more important things. That is, how will the New Year be celebrated, and how should one prepare for it? This is how New Year's is celebrated in tropical Africa. This is in Zambia. This folklore ensemble is called the Maramba, and they perform before foreign and local tourists. It is located in the town of Livingston, which is located near the largest waterfall in the world, the Victoria Waterfall. There are very many comfortable hotels in the region, and it is not only the falls that attract the tourists, but also some of the malachite and ivory carvings that are done by local artists. This fellow, Joseph, is playing on his tom-tom drum and is attempting to play a Christmas carol. Despite the malachite and the ivory, the greatest attraction still remains the Victoria Falls, which is reminiscent of some sort of slumbering smoke that can be seen from kilometers in the distance. The flowing waters here remind one of one's own life's difficulties, and we can only hope that 1994 will bring a year of calm and peace, and so that we can remember 1994 like we do the Victoria Waterfalls. What was the year 1993 for Latvia? It was difficult and it was full of contradictions. Now we are expecting new hopes for 1994. This year, we can say with confidence that in 1993 we were able to stabilize our currency and introduce the Latvian lat, reduce inflation, and curb the drop in production. According to a social poll, 47% of the population looks at 1993 with confidence, but 42% of the population said that it was not such a good year after all. Over the past 2 years, the face of Riga has changed considerably. Many of the homes and buildings in downtown Riga have been repaired and fixed up. Many new stores and cafes have been opened. And today, on New Year's Day, the streets are filled with music and decorations. But what do people expect for 1994? Many say peace, consent, and the signing of agreements with Russia. Russia is rich with traditions, and many people wish to preserve these traditions. One of these traditions is the sense of humor. In Volodyodsky Oblast, in the city of Veliki Ustye, Faina Alexandrovna Shepyotkina, an almost 80-year-old woman, is well known for her good humor and her youthful air. She has experienced many great difficulties in life, like millions of our women, but nonetheless, since early childhood, she has had a special talent, and that is to be able to recite humorous catchphrases and these things called chastuchki, which are 2 or 4 line rhymed poems on humorous themes. And one of them is, what is that noise that we hear? Oh, that's our little Valya. She's dancing up a storm. One would even guess by the way she's moving that she might be epileptic. Well, can you make up these chastuchki about anything, even a refrigerator? Of course. I just recently bought a refrigerator called muka, which is flour. There's not much meat, but after all, I still have a husband, so that's okay. Well, why are all your chastuchki about love, after all? Well, we don't have any land, we don't have any livestock, no cows, so the only thing left to talk about is love. See, I won my husband over. I charmed him, I broke his neck, so to speak, and then he fell in love with me. Well, what's your favorite television program, Faina Hazyanov? I think he's a wonderful performer. What about this serial program, Maria? Oh, I feel so bad for Maria. She has to suffer so. She's the one who has to bear everything upon her own shoulders. whenever it's on television, we always watch it. They show it 3 or 4 times a week, and we drop everything just to turn on the television and watch Maria. But for all Russians, I would like to wish you all a happy holiday, both a happy New Year and Merry Christmas. I wish you happiness, health, and prosperity. We've lived through so many difficult times, through wars, through collectivization, and now life isn't all that easy, but nonetheless, we will live better one day. I wish you all the very best and a happy New Year. Health and happiness to all. Some people are already on vacation and others are still working, but we decided to have a special program this evening, a special vignette about ourselves. Good evening. You're watching the evening news from Ostankino television. The amount of news that we have to produce seems to increase twofold every 6 years. Every day our work schedule is more and more hectic all the time. And it seems that we live in a battle between time and facts. Every single day we have to bring together all of our journalists, sit down and decide what are the best programs to broadcast and air. Once those decisions have been made, then we send our film crews out to catch the hottest stories. The more journalists that are involved in this process, the more complicated it becomes, and the more difficult it is to arrange for a half an hour news program. But nonetheless, we have very successful programs because we have very efficient air dispatchers and producers behind the scenes. In Italy, some of the producers are considered the most communicative and sociable, and their co-workers often bring them oranges, and some of the strictest ones, lemons. In our country, I would say that we'd have to give them something even more bitter than a lemon, the way they drive us to work. It's quite interesting that this particular form, which we use on a regular basis for various programming, is called the dog. It's quite a funny coincidence, isn't it? After all, this is the year of the dog. Everyone who prepared this evening's evening news program would like to wish you a happy holiday, happy New Year. Let's hope that this new year will be full of peace. My home is my fortress, and I hope that yours is for you as well. The United Nations has said that starting with tomorrow, we will be entering the calendar year, the year of the family, of athletes and Olympic ideals. In just a couple of minutes, you will hear the sports news, and we'd like to say goodbye to you until next year. Minotep Bank combines intellectual and financial resources to invest in Russian industry. Minotep is the #1 investment bank. Attention to all shareholders of the public joint stock company MMM. The shareholders meeting reached a conclusion that dividends for the fourth quarter of 1993 would be issued with a 1,000% annual. You may receive your dividends as of the 1st of February in Moscow and Varshavsky Chaussee, number 26, in the Trade Hall of MMM. We are open daily with the exception of Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Trust from generation to generation. The Russian Credit Bank. On the 14th of January, Moscow Real Estate will be holding a raffle for its shareholders so that they can receive apartments in the city. Moscow Real Estate is always here for you. International Industrial Bank wishes you a Happy New Year. Happy New Year, my friends. This is the last bit of athletic news for 1993, and I'd like to begin with a report from the Manzhaevsky ski slopes in Moscow. Here we have a number of professional skiers gathered around me, and they're here to celebrate the new year with various competitions here on the slopes today. I'd like to wish you health, success, and happiness with 1994. Here at the ski slopes, everyone is in a happy, festive holiday mood. Mikhail Batvinov leads the all-star team for Russia. I'd like to say that this is perhaps one of the most cheerful New Year's. There's lots of snow, more than usual, and everyone is in a happy and festive holiday mood. Today, in the Swiss city of Davos, the Sprinkler Cup came to a close. Unfortunately, we didn't see the Russian team among the finalists, the Chelyabinsk tractor team. One of the Swiss team won with a final score of 6-3. But on the Russian team, Andrei Khalatov was considered the best player of the day. The participants in the Paris-Dakar race continues today. After the third stage in the race, Nikolai Yazarov and Alexei Nakonenko, driving the Lada Samara 3T automobiles, are in 7th and 8th place, respectively. On the 3rd of December 1992, MMM was registered in Moscow, and on the 3rd of December 1993, it was registered in Brussels, Belgium, as MMM Invest. We are already turning your vouchers into gold. Minotep Bank combines intellectual and financial resources to invest in Russian industry. Minotep is the #1 investment bank. On the 14th of January, Moscow Real Estate will be holding its first raffle for its stockholders. Moscow Real Estate is always on hand for you. Smile more often this next year. Most Bank. Petrochemical Bank. Povolzhia, snow. In the Urals, -10 to -15. Northern Caucasus, 0 to +5 degrees. Krasnodarsky Krai, +8 to +13. Kaliningradsky Oblast, +1 to +5. Belarus, -1 to +4. The Ukraine, +3 to +9. St. Petersburg, 0 to +2. And in Moscow, snow for the region.